We often think of the city lights, don't we? The shimmering lights reflected on the gray November sky. And on one such evening, Daniel Brooks, a weary man, walked along a cracked sidewalk. One hand held a toolbox tight, the other a thin plastic bag containing a few necessities. And against his chest were his twin sons, Matthew and Michael, only 6 months old, soft, still sweet in their sleep. Their small heads were pressed against his worn-out jacket. His steps were slow, somewhat resolute, yet full of exhaustion. His boots scraped against the hard concrete, and each step seemed like a small protest against fatigue. The streetlights overhead buzzed softly, and from somewhere, a distant dog barked. He kept walking, his breath cold and misty in the winter air. His body swayed with the rhythm of 2 tiny heartbeats that pulsed in sync with his own. 3 weeks ago, his wife had left. Daniel's wife, Sarah, had left on a light, rainy afternoon. They had lived together for over 6 years, and throughout that time, Sarah had gradually felt she was being left behind. The days of childcare, the worry over bills, the long sleepless nights, and the never-ending exhaustion. The initial love was now like a simmering wound, unspoken, but felt by everyone. Sarah looked in the bathroom mirror, her long hair messy, her tired eyes unable to hide the exhaustion. She had tried everything, been patient every day, but sometimes life couldn't just be about waiting and hoping. The unacknowledged efforts, the sighs when Daniel came home with wounds, his hands and feet covered in dirt, his eyes dull from lack of sleep. She felt she couldn't endure it anymore. The feeling of loneliness and abandonment, despite living under one roof, continued to surround her. Just a few days before leaving, Sarah had stood in the kitchen, looking through the rain-streaked window, clutching a cold cup of coffee. She looked at Daniel, the husband she still loved, but could no longer understand. He was too tired, and so was she. The 2 children, the hardships, and a sense of inescapable weariness. The exhaustion came from deep within her heart. She had asked herself 1,000 times, "Is there anything more I can do?" And the answer was still, no. She couldn't continue to live in a house filled with weariness and despair, even though the love was still there. And then, one morning, he returned from a 10-hour shift at the construction site, his hands stinging from the cold wind. He always looked forward to the familiar chaos at home, bottles to wash, diapers to change, the cries of the children. But this time, when he opened the door, there was only silence, and on the kitchen table was a piece of paper. "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." That was all. No explanation, no promises, just 8 words. And suddenly, the house became empty, as if everything he had ever believed in had vanished. He stood there in the kitchen, the space seeming to pause. The crying of the 2 children still echoed from the next room. His pain was incomparable. He looked at the crying children but couldn't do anything. A moment later, he picked them up one by one, comforting them in his numbness, tears rolling down, unable to speak a word. All he could say was, "It's okay, guys, Dad's here." And then he remembered. At 32, Daniel had seen this abandonment too many times. He had seen it in his mother's eyes and in the empty space of his father's broken promises. Yes, they had abandoned him. He grew up in orphanages, places smelling of bleach and disappointment. And he learned to stand on his own, to fix things because he couldn't fix people. He promised himself that when he had his own family, he would never let his children feel that emptiness. But now, he was holding 2 children who didn't yet know the word mom. The first nights after his wife left were chaotic. He barely slept, barely ate. The babies woke up constantly, one crying, just as the other fell asleep. He fed one, then the other, singing lullabies in the dark until the light of dawn shone through the window. Every day, money was a worry, but he never gave up. Though construction work and side jobs were not easy, he persevered, just to have enough money for his sons. His mother-in-law lived far away and didn't answer the phone. Neighbors were sympathetic, but offered no help. He was the only man who could take care of these children. When his sons first laughed, he was there. When they took their first steps, he caught them. And when they cried in pain from teething, he sang them lullabies he barely remembered from his own mother. He never forgot the reason he did all of this. You will never be alone, not like your dad was back then. And so, the years passed. He never gave up. He worked day and night, giving his sons what he could. Every day was a struggle, but every day he had a reason to continue. He never forgot the reason he did it all, for his sons, for a better future. His sons learned very early on that nothing came easy. New shoes had to wait for a sale. Christmas was limited to one gift, and eating out was only for special occasions. Yet, they never felt poor. They had something no check could buy, a father who was present every single day, no matter how tired he was. They watched him patch holes in other people's houses while their own needed painting. They saw him fall asleep in the armchair, his boots still on. Silently, they began to see the world differently. In middle school, the guidance counselor called Daniel into the office. "Your sons are exceptional," she said. "Matthew is 2 grades ahead in math, and Michael built a working irrigation system model from discarded parts." Daniel smiled, his heart full of pride. They get that from their mother's side, I guess. It was the first time he had spoken her name in so many years. The word came out easier than he thought. The guidance counselor returned a light smile. "No, Mr. Brooks, they get that from you." Still, sometimes the night would come, and the fatigue brought with it a sense of failure. When his car broke down, he had to walk 5 miles to his night job, the cold rain soaking through his jacket. When the landlord raised the rent, he took on extra weekend shifts to cover the difference. He told no one. His sons only knew that there was always food, always heat, and always love, even if it was all wrapped in exhaustion. When Matthew was 12, the orthodontist handed him a bill the size of a mortgage loan. He looked at the number, then at his son's crooked smile, then nodded. "Do it," he said. That night, he opened a small box on a high shelf, his mother's wedding ring, the only possession of hers he had kept. He stared at it for a long moment before taking it to the pawn shop, returning home with money in his pocket and a hollow feeling in his chest. When Matthew smiled a few weeks later, his teeth bright, Daniel thought all the sacrifice was worth it. Michael discovered computers. The 3 antique computers at the library squeaked and groaned, but to him they were magic. He taught himself programming using free tutorials, staying until the library closed, with Daniel standing outside, pretending to read the newspaper. When Michael wanted his own computer, Daniel didn't hesitate. He didn't have the money, but he didn't hesitate. He took the 3rd shift at the warehouse, hauling boxes all night, getting home just in time to wake the boys for school. After 6 months, the computer was on the kitchen table. Michael tore off the wrapping, his eyes lighting up. "Dad, how did you get—" Daniel shrugged. "Found it on sale." As time passed, his sons began to grow up and start their own business. Their startup, Rise Financial, was then just, well, a couple of laptops, a crazy idea about helping people save money automatically, and the boundless optimism only 22-year-olds possess. They wrote code by day, then rushed to pitch to investors at night. Food? Instant noodles, a few slices of $2 pizza, and tons of caffeine. On a truly prosperous day, they shared a Subway sandwich. And on a bad day? Just a laugh, what else? The city didn't care who they were, and that very indifference brought absolute freedom. At first, no one believed them. No one took them seriously. One venture capitalist, after listening, leaned back in his chair, a smirk on his face. He said, "2 kids from nowhere want to revolutionize consumer finance? I like the story, but I'm not buying the execution." They walked out, laughing loudly, but the sting was still there. Back at the apartment, Michael slammed his laptop shut in frustration. "He doesn't even know what we've built." Matthew, calmer, rubbed his temples. "It doesn't matter. We just need one person to believe," Michael mumbled. "Dad will believe." Matthew nodded. "Dad still believes. That's enough." They worked through every holiday. The only person who called was Daniel, their father, every Sunday like clockwork. "How's the big city treating my boys?" he'd ask, his voice crackling over the line. Michael would grin. Haven't been mugged yet. Sometimes he sent food. In those care packages, there was always a handwritten note. His handwriting was shaky, the paper cheap, but the message was strong, clear. Keep going. Don't give up just because it's hard. They pinned it to their desk. It became their manifesto. A few months later, an independent journalist wrote a small article. 2 brothers, 1 app, and the dream to change American finance. It went modestly viral. Downloads tripled in 1 week. 2 weeks later, they met Valerie Tran, a sharp angel investor. After hearing the pitch, she didn't mince words. You remind me of myself. Hungry, stubborn, broke. I'll place a bet. But I want to see blood, sweat, and scalability. They promised all 3. Valerie's investment kept them from starving and allowed them to rent a tiny office in Soho. And this was when the real battle began. Late-night debugging, business spreadsheets, phone calls, and small victories that felt like history in the making. Michael lived on coffee and code. Matthew lived on data and strategy. Their combination? Perfect. The twin rhythm they had shared since childhood. One wavered, the other pushed up. One doubted, the other believed. Their first milestone? 2 years later, 100,000 active users. They celebrated with champagne bought at a gas station, drunk out of paper cups, and pizza eaten right out of the box. Matthew raised his paper cup. To Dad. Michael repeated, to Dad. They told him about their first successes. His words always were the core of everything. By the age of 27, the Brooks brothers were on the cover of a magazine. From working-class roots to a billion-dollar dream, the media asked, where does this drive come from? Finally, Matthew spoke bluntly, proudly. Our father worked 3 jobs so we could have this chance. Whenever we think we're tired, we remember that he never stopped. At home, Daniel watched the interview on his old TV, the sound crackling, but the image clear. He smiled, wiping away a tear. Mrs. Keegan, his former landlady, was watching with him. She said, you did good, Danny. Daniel replied, my sons did better. She just smiled. It was because of you,